Hello everybody, Raspberry Barrel here, and now we're going to read another Biography of Mewni by Infaminxy. The biography we'll be reading today is Yishia the artist. And in this AU, Yishia is the daughter of Polaria the Navigator from Jig 0109's AU. Please forgive me if I stutter, hesitate, or mispronounce anything, and for any noises in the background. And let's begin. Yishia the artist. Taking the colors and the brush, she made paintings with lush, drawing rainbow streams, picked up for her dreams. Yishia Butterfly, the artist. Born 94, died 154, was queen 114 through 139. Married to Talloween Roxon. Children, Universalia Butterfly, Holly Butterfly, and Selenius Butterfly. Yishia was born on a night in 94. She had a pair of light green paintbrushes on her cheeks, along with green eyes and hair inherited from her father. She got the name Yishia, which meant daughter of the artist. Polaria named her this, for she had paintbrush cheek marks. Yishia inherited her mother's determination and leadership, along with her father's quick thinking. She also had one unique feature of her own, her creativity and artistic talent. Throughout her childhood, she was a bit shy, so she mostly just stayed in her room and would draw and paint. Her room was filled with paintings of different things, from animals to castles, even some of her own family members. Some people even say Yishia drew at least 5 drawings a day. Yishia was not very social throughout her childhood, and this phase would last throughout her teens. She didn't have many friends and always hid behind her mother during the royal council meetings. Whenever a kid tried to approach her, she would run and hide herself behind her parents, which often confused the kids. So as a whole, Yishia never had a very good social skills. When she was 4, Yishia earned a sister, Volna. She had dark green hair and blue eyes, along with a pair of yellow rectangles on her cheeks. When Yishia was 7, Queen Polaria enrolled her in art classes. The class was nothing more than painting, drawing, and practicing different art styles. After only a month of the class, Yishia's teacher was absolutely amazed by Yishia's artistic talents and even rated her top of her class. After she finished the class, she was inspired to take more. After 2 more classes, Yishia gained the courage to compete in an annual Mewnian Youth Arts Competition, the famous art competition for children on Mewni. The event happened once every 2 years, and young lords and ladies from almost all the kingdoms of Mewni would compete. While Yishia was never a competitive person, she still enrolled just for the fun of it all. Yishia practiced painting and drawing more than average for the next few months. She was determined to make a beautiful, stunning piece. She even skipped dessert sometimes, which was a big deal considering she craved the desserts that she had after dinner. Sometimes Polaria would tell Yishia the stories of her sailing adventures, and Yishia would draw pictures of the stories for practice too. After winning multiple competitions and receiving multiple awards, Yishia begged her parents for an art studio of her own, but they denied and told her to wait until she was a bit older. Why Queen Polaria did this, you may ask? She felt if she gave Yishia an art studio at this age, it would spoil her. On her 14th birthday in 108, she inherited the royal butterfly magic wand. It took the form of a green paintbrush with 4 pointed stars at the bottom and had a green crystal, the same shape as Yishia's cheek marks, as well as a rainbow streak across the handle. When Yishia realized her wand took the form of a paintbrush, she started to use the wand to her advantage. She started to paint and draw with it, and created spells that would give a different texture of the brush, change the colors, anything you could imagine. After Yishia finished her piece with the wand, her mother was astonished. She had never seen such beauty. She insisted on putting it on display in the hall. All the maids and servants' jaws dropped when they saw the painting. Tens of people crowded around the painting every hour of the day to see the painting. This inspired Yishia to make art with the wand. In the making of her second piece, she created many spells to help with the dimensions and colors of the drawing. When she completed it, her parents were stunned once again, but what would surprise Yishia even more is this: the official Moss's Kingdom Museum of Arts requested the painting to be on display. The Moss's kingdom is known for its stunning art and culture. Even Yishia's idol, the most talented artist at the time of Mewni, was the princess of the kingdom. It all seemed to be good, so without a second thought, Yishia agreed and sent the painting to the Moss's kingdom. After making more than 23 paintings and sending 18 of them to the official Moss's Kingdom Museum, she decided she wanted to expand her artistic abilities beyond paintings. She wanted to study different arts from across the lands. She told her parents about this, and they allowed her to visit kingdoms to study the art. Her first kingdom was the Alistair Kingdom. They had very intriguing stone carvings and sculpting. Yishia took classes from a professional sculptor. She made bowls, goblets, and even face sculptures. After she completed mastering stone carvings, she moved on to the Watermelon Kingdom. In the Watermelon Kingdom, she received much fame as she had already grew popular from her amazing art pieces. She had classes from Jayish Watermelon, the 8th son of Lord Watermelon. The Watermelon Kingdom had an art of painting with the thickened juices of fruit. One morning, Yishia was walking down the hall to the garden to practice art with her teacher, Jayish, when she bumped into Kek Watermelon, Yishia's younger brother. As soon as Yishia started to apologize while picking up her supplies, Kek started flirting with her, complimenting her hair and eyes and saying vicious things. Yishia was embarrassed, but deep down liked it. After her class, Kek was already in the hall waiting for her. Kek took her to her room and set the mood with a dark room and candles. Yishia and Kek then sat on the bed and talked for a while before they made out. Yishia tried to distance herself from Kek as she felt he wasn't ready for a relationship, but Kek took advantage of her with his words and the two started a relationship, which would not work well at all. In the beginning of the relationship, everything was good, and Yishia thought Kek was a gentleman, but that would change later. Kek would start to force Yishia to kiss him, and he touched her when she didn't want to be touched. He made her feel uncomfortable and even went as far as to watch her bathe. Whenever Yishia denied to kiss him or didn't show the slightest of attention towards him, he would yell at her and threaten her. This situation was very toxic. Yishia was stuck in a deep hole and she couldn't get out of it. Almost every week, she would go in her room and cry, wanting to return to the Butterfly Kingdom. Anyways, stepping away from her love life and going back to her art life, Yishia mastered the art of fruit juice painting and was ready to move on, but Yishia started to make crafts out of the many watermelons of the kingdom. Everyone saw this as a creative idea, and Lord Watermelon made it a tradition. She was now going to move on to the Horsewood Kingdom, but Kek didn't approve of this and tried to force her to stay in the kingdom for a longer amount of time. But Yishia didn't approve, and they had an argument that ended in Yishia and Kek both going back to their rooms. When Kek approached Yishia that night, he apologized, even though he didn't mean it, and Yishia helplessly forgave him. Kek then took her to his room and asked her to take her dress off. Yishia didn't agree and denied. After Kek yelled at her multiple times to take her dress off, she did. He told Yishia to go on the bed, and I think we know where that went. The next morning, Yishia fled the kingdom, with leaving a note to Kek saying, "My deepest apologies, but I must leave to continue my art journey. Maybe we'll meet again, dearest. Yishia Butterfly." Sincerely, Yishia didn't actually want to see him again, and was trying to escape him. When she arrived at the Horsewood Kingdom, she received a class from a professional artist. The Horsewood Kingdom was known for its stunning wood carving crafts and still life portraits, so Yishia decided to take both classes on both arts. A month after her arrival in the kingdom, Kek came to visit. Yishia was in misery the whole time because of Kek forcing her to give him her cake. Later, she heard rumors of Kek taking on many girls, 8 to be exact, and Yishia decided she had enough of his behavior. Yishia gathered up all the courage and broke up with Kek that night. Kek was extremely mad but couldn't do anything to harm Yishia, as Yishia's teacher had been in the room with them. Kek yelled at her one final time before leaving. Even though Yishia was thankful for Kek leaving her, their relationship would have a mark on her personality. Yishia became more insecure about her body and was incredibly uncomfortable talking about how babies were made. After completing her art at the Horsewood Kingdom, Yishia decided to return home. She was joyous when she arrived, happy to see her family. She was also surprised with the much-wanted art studio of hers. It was located down the hall from her room. Yishia spent days inside, painting, doing crafts, and such. After she got back, Yishia noticed the amount of fame she had gotten from her artwork. People had never seen such amazing art before. Some people broke into tears after seeing her art because of the persistence and beauty of it. After sending 3 more paintings to the official Moses Art Museum, Yishia decided she wanted to continue to practice the art of the other kingdoms, except this time overseas. This would be no problem as her mother was already a sailor. She just needed some time to get her travel organized, and Polaria's sister, Fengara, would be a regent while Polaria and Yishia were out to sea. After 2 months, the supplies was loaded on the ship and the trip was organized. After 15 years, the Sea Star set sail. They would first be going to the Philips Kingdom, then the Jade Kingdom, the Grom Kingdom, and finally the Umbrom Kingdom. They first set a course for the Philips Kingdom. When they arrived in the Philips Kingdom, Yishia was greeted by her professional teacher. Yishia would be taking classes in the castle. The Philips Kingdom was known for its unique recycled art, collecting natural resources and trash and turning them into sculptures. Upon returning from practice one day, she met the son of the Lord, Jetrine. Jetrine was nice and caring. Yishia liked him, and after getting to know him more, they started a friendship. Jetrine seemed to really admire Yishia and for her art. He would bring it up in every conversation they had. Yishia thought it was sweet, but it started to get annoying sometimes. After 3 months, Jetrine confessed his crush on her. Yishia was considering starting a relationship, but was still scared because of Kek. After thinking long and hard, she decided to give it a shot. Now being complete with her art studies after a year in the Philips Kingdom, it was time for the Jade Kingdom. Yishia decided to bring Jetrine with her for the rest of the trip. The voyage was long and hard, as it was becoming winter, but nonetheless they made it. They were treated by the Royal Jade Kingdom, Queen Minghua Jade, King Baiming Jade, and their children. They had a feast that night, welcoming the arrival of the Queen and the artist prodigy. Yishia was able to make a close bond with all 7 of the children during the dinner. They all complimented Yishia on her art pieces, which Yishia thanked them for. The next morning, Yishia would start her class with Prince Jade. The genre of art they would be practicing was origami, which required skill and patience. They would usually practice in the gardens or on top of the cherry blossoms and watch the beautiful sunset. Yishia even admitted that her study in the Jade Kingdom was her favorite out of all the kingdoms she studied in. After a year, Yishia was a complete master at origami. The night before her departure, there was a grand feast and a ball thrown for them. Yishia and Jetrine danced and shared their romantic feelings. Yishia finally felt like their relationship was finally going somewhere, as for the past year, they had only been going on dates and only talked to each other a few minutes a day. It was also that night that they shared their first kiss. After the ball was completed, Yishia was walking back to her room. She decided to walk through the Hall of Art along the way there. That's when she noticed something off. She looked at one of the sculptures, and it looked almost identical to the one she had made a week prior. It said it was made by Jetrine Philips. Yishia, of course, thought it was suspicious, but passed it off as taking a bit of inspiration from her. The next year of her life was not so remarkable. Nothing had happened. She only studied the painting techniques taught to her in the Grom and Umbrom kingdoms. But the last few months of Yishia's year were important because this is when her and Jetrine's relationship would collapse. One day during visiting an art museum in the Umbrom kingdom, Yishia found multiple pieces of her art, which shocked her, as she didn't remember even submitting her art to the museum. What made it even more suspicious is that the next week, Yishia noticed her art in her room starting to disappear. All of this worried Yishia and made her extremely uncomfortable. She knew someone was stealing her art. The next morning, she decided to go back to the museum to check who submitted the piece, and to her surprise, it was none other than Jetrine. Yishia was absolutely furious. She felt betrayed, heartbroken, and upset. She wanted to smash Jetron's skull open. She wanted to confront him immediately, but this wouldn't be easy as Yishia would be returning to Mewni the next day. The next morning when she woke up, she didn't even bother to look at Jetron. 4 hours after the ship's departure, Yishia confronted Jetron. She told him all the evidence, but he lied and denied all of it, which infuriated Yishia, causing her to blast him off the ship into the water. Yishia told her mother what happened. Polaria hugged her and told her she did the right thing. When they returned to Mewni, Polaria tried to take legal action against the Phillips royal family, but unfortunately nothing could be done. The whole situation made Yishia develop trust issues and made her bitter as a whole. She locked herself away from everyone. The only time she would be seen was during meals. Other than that, she'd be in her art studio most, if not all, the time. It was now fall, meaning the end of the year, and Yishia was still cold-hearted. One quiet evening, she received a knock on her door. She opened it, and a boy was on the other side. He had a thin blonde hair and shimmering green eyes. He introduced himself. Halloween Roxon. Yishia rolled her eyes and asked him what he wanted. Surprised, he told her he wanted to critique and even help her with her art. Yishia laughed egotistically, saying she was the best artist in Mewni and didn't need help. Halloween shrugged and said that just because she was great at art didn't mean there wasn't room for improvement. Yishia sighed and agreed to let him in. Halloween looked around at Yishia's art in amazement, pointing out the good and what she needed to work on. Yishia thought it was all nonsense, but found that some of it was true, even though she didn't admit it. After talking with Halloween for a while, they agreed that he could come to the studio every day or so to check on Yishia. Their friendship started out tough. Yishia would often be egotistical, which would bother Halloween, making them get into fights. Once Halloween even stopped visiting her and came back apologizing. During a ball celebrating her 18th birthday, William Forrest approached her wanting a dance. She said no for 2 seconds. 1, she was not comfortable about doing romantic things because of her previous relationships, and 2, she was trying to avoid being social the whole ball. William accepted her rejection and went on to ask Penna Hourman. Just before he moved a single inch, Yishia whispered under her breath, "Now be gone, cruel man." William heard her, immediately turned around as fast as a spinning needle, and punched Yishia in the face, crushing her to fall on the ground and cry, which made a scene. Halloween rushed over to Yishia, comforting her and rubbing the places she felt pain in. He started to yell at William for assaulting Yishia, but in his defense, he said she harassed him. The controversy was broken up by the king and queen and Lord Lady Forrest. After the ball, Yishia and Halloween talked, and Yishia thanked him for all he had done, helping her with her art and defending her a few minutes prior. She apologized for her behavior and said it was a side effect of being harassed and betrayed in the past. Halloween replied to her saying that the reason he wanted to begin a friendship and help Yishia was because he heard what had happened to her and wanted to help. Yishia hugged him, thanking him, and he hugged back. From this night on, the sapling that was their relationship bloomed into a flower. Now Yishia would take Halloween's suggestions into consideration and use them, which worked and made her art even more amazing. Sometimes Halloween would even work with Yishia on her projects. After releasing one of her portraits of Queen Mariposa into Moss's museum, the Saint Mariposa portrait, it became famous. There were not many paintings of the queens made by the current artists because of the limited references, and the ones that were made were very off. But Yishia's was accurate. People were amazed. After a while, the painting was transferred to the official monument of Mariposa in the castle. The queen was highly congratulated on the fame she received, and to this day is still considered an astonishing painting. After a few months, Yishia returned to her normal self. She was no longer bitter and cold. She started appearing in public more and started entering tournaments and competitions again. Halloween was proud of her for how far she had come, and so was Yishia. After after returning to her normal self again, she also started to create art that would go down in history. One of them was the golden butterfly bowl. It was a bowl Yishia designed and made. It was made of clay and covered with a suit of gold. It had gold and diamond butterflies imprinted on it, along with emeralds, amethyst, pearls, topazes, aquamarine, aurusuvite jewels on it. It is tradition to use this grand bowl as the wine and/or punch bowl at the queen's coronations. In 113, Yishia had received the good news of the pregnancies of the ladies of House Flowers, Ocean Man, Waterson, Redbird, and Hourman, and that 3 of the Jade Kingdom's princesses were pregnant as well as the new baby of Lord Forest. After hearing this, Yishia became more comfortable about the topic of romance and love. She realized it was a beautiful thing not to be afraid of, as well as that she shouldn't let her bad past experiences affect her. She decided to put the past of her and Jetrine and Kek's relationship behind her. Reopening to the idea of love also affected her feelings for Toloween. She started feeling romantically attached to him and felt as if he was truly the right one. For a while she didn't admit it due to being a little shy, but a few months later told him nervously, with him responding by hugging her and telling her he was glad she felt that way, and asked her if she truly was sure she wanted to love him. Yishia explained how she accepted that love was a good thing and how she wanted to omit the past. Toloween understood. Despite starting a romance, their relationship wasn't public until 114, when maids and servants would see them making out in the hallways. When they checked on her and in her art studio, her and Toloween were more touchy with each other, and one of the maids even claimed she heard Yishia moaning from her room at night. When her parents asked if she was in a relationship with anyone, she told them. Pilaria replied by winking with a smile. Some people discuss whether or not Pilaria knew from the beginning, but nobody knows. Later in the year, Yishia discovered she was pregnant. Her parents decided to arrange the wedding a week later, so no controversy would start. The wedding was actually designed and planned by Yishia herself, and the outcome was very pretty. Even I myself thought it was alluring. But back to on topic, the wedding was very cheerful, and even though Yishia had vomited multiple times due to being pregnant, the same day her coronation was also held. Her crown was similar to Mariposa and Moon's, just a bit smaller, with 2 green carved lions, and the middle meeting with the green diamond. Later in autumn of 114, Yishia bore her first child and princess, Universalia. She had the blonde hair and green eyes of her father, and had blue ringed planets on her cheeks. For the next 13 months, Yishia dedicated herself to her family. She spent the afternoons painting and crafting with Toloween, and took care of her new creation, Universalia. She even went as far as designing her own daughter's clothing, which she would later do with her other 2 children, and making paintings of her. Celebrating her 22nd birthday in 116, Yishia realized how far she had come in her life, how she went through tough times like her relationship with Kek, being betrayed by Jetrine, how she started out drawing as a hobby and now was the greatest artist known in Mewni, and how she overcame her issues and met Toloween. It made her feel inspired and proud, so inspired she made a series of paintings representing her life. The first 13 paintings represented her childhood, one of a butterfly and a young caterpillar representing her birth, a butterfly with stress of beautiful colors and objects coming out of it, representing her love of art, and a rainbow butterfly with many other small butterflies following her, competing in art competitions. The next ones were paintings of the castles and palaces of the respective kingdoms she visited, along with one of a woman tied in chains with a man watching over her, representing her relationship with Kek, and another of a man pushing a woman off a cliff as her art falls out of her hands toward him, representing Jetrine's betrayal. And finally, the last paintings were the ones leading up to this point of life, a green butterfly landing on a lion's nose, representing her meeting Toloween, a lion fighting another green lion, while a green butterfly with a damaged wing is on the ground, Toloween defending her from William. a butterfly soaring in the sky with another small one by its side, and the lion running along with them. Yishia getting a new family. She would later make 2 more paintings representing the birth of her 2 other children. Keep in mind that this series of paintings was only on the main pinpoint in her life and not every single detail. The year 118 was just around the corner, and so was Yishia's second baby. In the summer of that year, she gave birth to her second princess, whom she had named Holly. After seeing her now 7-year-old daughter was interested and enthusiastic about the butterfly family and Mewnian history, she enrolled her in classes with the Australian firefly to study the subjects and would later send her to Elfindor. After enrolling her daughter in classes, she found it was becoming more difficult to keep up with her work of art while raising Universalia and also having another child. So she stopped entering tournaments and competing, as well as not making any more art for the Mosses Art Museum. In 127, Yishia visited her mother with Universalia and Holly. Polaria had been sick with pneumonia for a week, and over the past 3 days it had gotten severe. After leaving her to go to sleep, she died. Yishia buried her and held a funeral for her. She even painted a portrait of her mother for the funeral, and while making it, bursted into tears. But she had Tolowina's comfort. 2 months before giving the wand to her daughter, she discovered she was pregnant. 7 months after passing the wand to Universalia, she gave birth to a boy, Selenius. Yishia started to notice that the work of the arts was not very popular. Of course, being an artistic person, she wasn't pleased by this and started to encourage artists and actors. She even increased the pay of artists by high amounts. This worked as Yishia started to notice more paintings, play announcements, and more throughout the streets. In 128, Universalia left Elfindor. But surprisingly, 4 months later, Universalia would return. When asked why, Universalia responded by saying that the courses were a bit boring and didn't give Universalia the information she was looking for. Yishia accepted Universalia's words and told her it was okay. After returning from a council meeting one day, Yishia received news from 3 guards that one of the daughters of King Jade arrived in the water pier. Yishia quickly rushed to the pier with a group of guards. When asked why she was on Mewni, Princess Jade replied by saying that the Jade Kingdom was in a great war with the powerful foreign colonies and needed the help of Mewni and their magical ability. Yishia was indifferent on the decision, and as she didn't want Mewni in the middle of a war that wasn't theirs. But after hard thinking between her and Tolowine, they decided to send Universalia, as she insisted on going herself when the subject was first brought up. Along with sending Universalia, they sent 14 battalions and the eldest son of Lord Redbird, Sir Herwan Redbird. After encouraging the work of art in Mewni, she wanted to build more museums. After many council meetings with construction, Mewni had its 4 very first art museums for the subjects and paintings and drawings, theater, sculpting, and a storytelling respectively, and alongside that, Yishia added many theaters to Mewni for entertainment. At the end of the year, Universalia would return from the war, along with Herwan and half of the battalions. Universalia came back with the news that the Jade Kingdom had won the war and sent an invitation to a celebration ball. Yishia gladly accepted and went. After returning from the ball, Herwan had proposed to Universalia, and a month later, in 132, the wedding and coronation would be held, meaning Yishia passed the crown to her daughter. During her daughter's reign, Yishia would continue to paint and craft with Tolowine and continue to raise their 14 and 4-year-old children, Holly and Selenius. Yishia would live to see her granddaughters, Scorpus and Virga, be born in 139 and 143. She even taught Scorpus some drawing tips. Sadly, at the age of 60, Yishia would die of natural causes. After being found dead one morning by her husband Tolowine, he fell into a depression, wearing darker clothes and mourning for more than 2 years. Two weeks after the funeral, Tolowine decided to found a museum in Mewni dedicated to his beloved wife Yishia. He removed all her art that had been featured in the Maz's museum and took her art from her art studio and placed it in the museum. The museum is still up today with all of Yishia's original work, including the Saint Mariposa portrait, and is one of the main tourist attractions of Mewni. Yishia and her origami teacher crafting origami. And that was the biography of Yishia the artist by Infaminxy on DeviantArt. Please go check out their wonderful art. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you all enjoyed this biography. Let me know down in the comments if you have any ideas or recommendations for what you'd like us to read. Have a great rest of your day. See you next time. Raspberry Barrel saying goodbye.